This is the first episode on the Rock Bottom on a Sunday podcast, and I want to start off with talking about how life is really depressing after college. I recently graduated from college myself, and I've been in this weird limbo state where I don't really know what I want to do with my life, and I don't really know what direction to take. So I just wanted to make a podcast and talk about just the struggles of being where I'm at in life right now, and I know a lot of people can probably relate, whether they also graduated from college or they're figuring out just big changes in their own lives. So, one of the first things I struggled with a lot leaving college and moving back home is losing friends. When I was in college, I wasn't necessarily like the most popular person ever, but I did manage to make some good friends right before I left. And what really messed me up the most is just the fact that I didn't really find those good friends until my later years in college, which kind of fucked me up because I was like, what was the point in struggling and suffering during the first 2 years of college just to only really find the good friends at the end of the year, which sucked. Yeah, it was kind of rough, like joining those new friend groups and seeing how closely knit those people were and how many years of friendship that they had between each other, where I was only just really joining in the last years of college. It's almost like my life hit a peak socially right before college ended, and that almost made it harder for me to deal with leaving college because for the longest time when I was in college, like my first year, my second year, my third year, it's like I had friends, but it's like I never really had like a tight solid friend group that like went out and did stuff consecutively together. So I was used to, like having gaps of like alone time where it was pretty much just me, myself, and like whatever else I found to do at the moment. But in this situation, it's like, wow, I finally met a group of people that were like super spontaneous and were like tight knit and like a good solid friend group. And then having to let go of that at the end of the year was really hard. It's like I got a glimpse of what my college experience could have looked like the whole full 4 years, and seeing that in like the last year of my college experience was really hard. Like, shit, I wasted so much time being friends with people who were so self centered and didn't actually genuinely care about me, and who were just focused on starting drama and just running out their clock instead of people who actually wanted to live and like experience things and be spontaneous and have fun and go on adventures. So yeah, coming home from college and like not really having that friend group anymore to do things with, it was kind of rough because I don't know, it just made me realize that like maybe my life isn't as exciting as I thought it was, and the only reason that I was actually having a good time was because of the people I was with. And as far as relationships go, I never really had a serious relationship in college or just at all for that matter. I had one guy that I dated briefly, which by brief I mean like I think we talked for like 3 months and I was like his girlfriend for 1 month. But he went to a different college, which was like an hour and a half away, so nothing really happened. Like that was really substantial in my life. But there was a guy that I recently was connected to right before I moved back home, and that relationship that didn't end up working out really messed me up. And I'll probably talk about that in a different podcast down the road. But going from the highs of having that relationship to the lows of leaving it behind and having to just go back to regular boring life and having to deal with like all the memories that come with being in a relationship that's like as intense and like short-lived as that one was is really hard. And yeah, that's been a really difficult thing to have to deal with post grad. And it sucks that that had to happen right before I graduated because it's like graduation should have been one of the peak moments of my life, but instead I was literally just so fucking depressed and sad and like hung up over this thing not working out with this guy, that it almost pretty much like ruined the whole fucking experience for me and made everything like 5 times worse and like more emotionally draining. Like the whole process of moving out of my apartment and saying goodbye to all my friends from college was like 5 times harder than it should have been, just because I think I was carrying around that weight, that like emotional baggage from that quote unquote breakup. And it's like I'm laughing now, but like holy shit, when it was happening, it was like my world was fucking concaving and like falling apart. And even still, it's been like a couple months since that happened, but like even still, it's like, bro, I like fucking wake up and it's like the first thing that comes to mind, and then I go to sleep like crying most of these nights. And I laugh about it now, but like I'm so dead ass. Like it's fucking rough. I'm still recovering from it, and I'll probably still be recovering from it like for a while. But yeah, I'll probably do an episode where I talk about that whole thing. And if you want to hear about it, definitely comment below because there's a lot of juicy shit that I can reveal in that episode. Oh boy. And fun fact, actually, the name of this podcast was inspired by me being on FaceTime with one of my best friends, and I was crying to her about the guy. And I said something as a joke. I was like, God, I just feel like I'm hitting rock bottom on a Sunday. And that's literally where the name of this podcast came from. And at first, it was like a joke where I was telling my friend, I was like, oh my gosh, we should do a podcast together, like name it Rock Bottom on a Sunday because she's a long distance friend and like we'll FaceTime each other here and there and catch up. And it's almost like every time we finally catch up, we have so much like trauma to dump on each other that it's like, oh my God, like this should be a podcast because like our lives are literally like a fucking joke at this point. It's like we hit rock bottom every single time we FaceTime one another. And that was just kind of like a running joke for a while. But recently I thought about it and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I actually want to make it into a real thing. So this is me filming the first episode of the Rock Bottom on a Sunday podcast. But, anyways, going back to the topic of this episode, why life sucks after college and why it's depressing. Another thing that I really struggled with since coming back home from college is just losing my sense of individuality and like self governance. When I was at college, I lived at an apartment off campus, thank God, because holy shit, my college was like awful. And I can do that, I can talk about that in a separate podcast, but basically, I lived off campus in an apartment with like a couple other roommates, and living in an apartment by myself with my car and all that shit made me feel like such an individual and like gave me such a sense of like self-governance and like power where I was like, wow, I can actually like choose what I want to do every day and like I feel like I have like just a sense of like self. And that experience was so empowering because it gave me the opportunity to teach myself how to just function as an adult and how to like wake myself up in the mornings and how to go about my day and keep my own space clean and like regulate everything. And moving back home to live with my parents has really hindered that growth, I think. And it's kind of put me back into where I used to be mentally when I was in high school, which was like I just kind of stay in my room and I don't really do anything unless I have to go do something. And being in a state where I don't really have friends to hang out with and I currently am in the position of job searching, it really just doesn't give me much room to really do anything, if that makes sense. Which, by the way, I'd also like to add that I am grateful that my parents are letting me come back home after college. It's not what I'm trying to get at. What I'm saying is just like this weird season of my life where I kind of feel like I almost reversed back into being a child is just kind of, I guess, presenting itself as a challenge for me. And since coming back home, I've been spending most of my time either just literally depression napping or looking for jobs. And while I've been looking for jobs, I will say it was surprising and shocking to realize how fucking hard it is to get a job after graduation that's in your major. I feel like literally nothing in college ever prepared me for like what real work is like, and that's kind of like something that I'm struggling with right now. The only real experiences that like taught me anything were strictly from the internships that I did. And that's one thing I'll say to anybody who's listening who either is in college or is about to go into college or even like you just graduated. Like just internships are so much better than any education that you can learn at any institution, and I like genuinely believe in that because at least at my college, they didn't teach us shit. Like the only things I learned that helped make me competitive in the job market is just like my internships. And something that I've realized while applying to all of these jobs is that I'm underqualified for most of the jobs that I want that are within my major and that could actually help to build my career. And I'm overqualified for all of the jobs that are like basic, kind of like food and service work. And so I'm stuck here, not really hearing back from like anybody. And it's like kind of fucking rough, I'm not gonna lie. And I know I'm not the only person who's feeling this way. I have a lot of friends who are also struggling in the same boat with different majors. So that makes me feel a little bit better about it. But I will say it's damaging to like your self-esteem and it makes you kind of think like, oh shit, like did I just go to college for nothing? Because it's almost like I can't find a job in the actual career that I want. And another thing that makes post grad life so hard is when you see other people succeeding and doing really well while you're still like stuck at home, like struggling. And I think part of it is that a lot of people like to upplay what they're doing and make it seem like they're living their dream life and like having their dream job and everything's just working out perfectly fine for them. When in reality, it's probably not as good as it seems, but on LinkedIn and on their Instagram posts, they make it seem like it's like amazing. when in reality, they're probably just bullshitting their way through life like everybody else is. But we just don't see that side of them because they don't portray it online, you know? So, yeah, if you're struggling with postgraduate depression like I am right now, just try not to compare yourself to other people and look at other people's successes as your own failures because that will just make you feel more shitty about yourself. Instead, I think it's better to just focus on where you're at and to try to take away as many distractions from your life as you possibly can. So, like, if it's easier for you to not look at other people's LinkedIn's and to not look at other people's Instagram posts, then silence those things, you know? Like, take those off and focus solely on yourself for a while because that'll make the whole transition out of college a lot easier. I'm personally still working through getting a job. I have like a pretty big interview coming up next week for a position that's actually within my career field, which is a writing position. So I'm really hoping that that goes well. And if it does, that might just be my first step into my post grad life as an adult. And if it goes poorly, well, then I'm kind of fucked. And I'll just continue trying to figure out life. But yeah, I think one of the biggest problems I struggle with as a postgraduate is just the staticness of life and just how nothing seems to be moving at the speed that it should. And I think that's something that a lot of people experience. It's definitely not just me, but it does make the whole process of existing after college like kind of a drag. I think the thing that I struggle with the most as a college graduate is just the fear of being average. Like, I'm afraid that I'm gonna get into the work field, wherever that is, and just become complacent and become okay with leading a boring ass life that has no meaning, no purpose. Shit, that was kind of deep. I haven't even talked to my therapist about that, but it's definitely something that holds me back is just the fear of making the wrong choice and then being stuck with that choice for the rest of my life. And I know realistically that's not what's going to happen. Like, even if I do make a bad choice out the gate, I can always make another choice the next day to fix it or to remediate it or to just take a different path in life. And I know that there are limitless choices in life, and I'm never going to run out of different options, but I just, for some reason, feel like I will. And honestly, another reason why I feel like it's so hard for me right now to let go of my college experience is because honestly, I didn't even really enjoy it in the first place. And I know at first that doesn't really make any sense, but basically what I'm trying to say is I feel like honestly, I didn't really fully enjoy the college experience that I had. Partly because my parents forced me to go to this one college that I really didn't want to go to. And because I didn't even enjoy my college experience, which is like quote unquote supposed to be like the best years of your life, it's like I'm afraid to like put it in the past, if that makes sense. It's like I can't even properly mourn it because I didn't really like it in the first place, but I still don't want to let it go because in my head I'm like, if those were supposed to be the best years of my life, then where the fuck is it going now, you know? Because I didn't grow up getting to make many choices for myself, such as the high school that I went to or the college that I attended, it's weird now having all of the responsibility of my life piled up on my shoulders when I'm not used to being able to make my own choices in the first place. So it's like, what do you mean, like, my future depends on me? Like, what the fuck? I've never, ever been in a place where all of my decision making comes down to me and me only. Like, that's really fucking weird. So, yeah, as you can see, I'm currently just trying to figure out my life. And that's partly why I wanted to make this podcast. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of therapeutic. Like, it was kind of like a weight off my shoulders to be able to speak my mind and actually just talk about all the shit that's going on in my head right now. And I hope that whoever's listening to this is able to relate and feel heard and understood through this podcast. So yeah, I've been listening to a lot of podcasters myself, like Leo Skeppy, Theo Vaughn, and Joe Rogan, and being able to listen to those people really helped put my mind at ease and kind of helped me to organize my own thoughts and be able to relate to people and realize like, oh, I'm not alone. So that's kind of partly the reason why I felt inspired to make this podcast. So yeah, it probably won't blow up as big as like those people's podcasts obviously, but if it can connect with anybody or help anybody who's listening, then it's worth making, I think. If you like this video, definitely leave it a like below and let me know what you thought about it and if there's any topics that you want me to cover in the future. Most of my content is probably going to be like mental health related or like just life advice, so if you're interested in any of that sort of stuff, definitely subscribe. I'm going to try to pop out as many videos as possible until I get into a regular posting schedule on a Sunday, as the name implies, rock bottom on a Sunday. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy the content that I'm putting out, and if you want to get more connected, be sure to leave a comment below, and I'll respond back to you guys as soon as possible. Love you guys. Mwah.